3 or 4 minutes.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, Paranormal Geeks Radio. Hello, my Paranormal Geek friends. I just wanted to say that, it's song's all about ruling the world. Who wants to rule the world? I just want to change it a little, make everybody more aware of the paranormal, the different things that are out here. You new people in the paranormal, all you think paranormal is about ghosts and going to haunted places, getting EVPs, and trying to scare each other. That's not all paranormal. Paranormal is many things. Paranormal is anything that's unknown, unexplained. That's what we're here for. We deal with UFOs. We deal with Bigfoot. We deal with dogmen. We deal with a little bit of everything. like tonight we're going to be dealing with the Nephilim, the ancient giants. There's so much more, I believe, to our religion than what is stated in the Bible. I was born and raised a Southern Baptist. I still am Southern Baptist. I go to church whenever I wake up in time. And that didn't happen this Sunday like I had planned, but, things happen. And I still believe in, God is my Savior. But there are some things that are kind of hard to understand. And hopefully tonight's guest will maybe open up your eyes and make you start thinking about some things. Just, when you're growing up, you're reading the Bible or listening to a sermon that you just kind of took for granted. But, it might not be the way it is. It might not be the way it is at all. First thing I want to talk about is, of course, like I always talk about every show, beginning of every show, is Ashmore Estates down in Ashmore, Illinois. Sunday, July 6th, they are having a poker run. It's cruising to raise the roof. And I say it's a benefit to put the roof back on Ashmore Estates, which was blown off by a tornado in January of this year. I guess that was telling us what we had to expect for this year. A tornado in January is not that common here in Illinois. And but I remember that night. It was a dark and stormy night. Been a great title or a good starting of a murder mystery. So I say that's July 6th, 2013. It starts at 9 a.m. Oh, I'm sorry, the registration for this poker run is at Ashmore Estates from 9 a.m. until 10 p.m. There's, I guess, I've heard of poker runs. I used to ride a motorcycle. I never on a poker run, but I've heard a lot about it, and I'm not too sure how they work, but it sounded like fun. So after the poker run, everybody is back up at Ashmore Estates, and they have live music. They have, I think last thing I heard was like maybe six or seven bands. I have a couple of them here in front of me. Got one called Creep, Urian, Bane Angel, All Fired Up, Strange Fruit, and Mondegreen or something like that. There's also going to be a barbecue there from Pop's Barbecue. I think they are in Mattoon, Illinois. I'm not too sure. They're going to be out serving barbecue. This thing goes on until, I think, midnight or 10, 11 o'clock, whatever. And I get off work that day at 5, and I'm going to hop in my cruising ride and head down to Ashmore, at least maybe spend 3 or 4 hours there with everybody. If you want some more information on this, there are a couple people you can call. One is Michelle Baker, and her number is area code, before I do this, Michelle, in chat, can I say your phone number over the air? Yes or no? Will work. She's typing. I guess it's all over Facebook. It's all over the internet. Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's all over the internet, so why not put it out to the 14 people who listen to the show? Michelle, her phone number is, hopefully it's working for you. Phone number is 217-663-1780. That's 217-663-1780. The other person you could call is Becky Guyman. Her phone number is 217-294-3879. They say this is up on the internet, so I'm pretty sure she won't mind me giving her phone number out be dozens of people that are going to be listening to the show. And let's see. Let me hop back over. Our guest is not here yet, and I'm officially a little scared. I don't get scared very often. Anyway, so also tonight, I have a guest host, a guest co-host or whatever. She was on the show last week. Had a little bit of a pinch last week. She jumped in and helped out. And the way June's going, I had a little pinch this week, and she jumped in to help out. And I want to welcome back Ms. Michelle Fitzpatrick. Welcome back, Michelle.
Hey, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here, and anything I can do for you is an honor. So I'm happy to be here, honey.
Okay, well, I wouldn't go as far as I would go beyond. Okay, well, thank you. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure talking to you, whether it's on the radio shows or not in person. I haven't done that yet, or on the phone. That's what it be. On the phone.
Right.
You're a very intelligent, delightful woman to talk to.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm really getting officially worried. Let me hop over to the. I haven't got any emails from him about.
Okay. We'll give him a little bit more time, and we'll chit chat amongst ourselves, and hopefully he'll call in.
Yep. I hope so. I mentioned during the beginning here about our ideas on religion and how it pertains to the paranormal and some of the other newer ideas that are theories that have been thrown out here about even going as far as ancient aliens being really the people in the Bible. The fallen angels are aliens. So we were talking the other night about on the phone about Atlantis.
Yeah.
And how they were the ultimate race, fair-haired people on this island, and they just disappeared. But there's also a race of alien, allegedly. They call the Nordic or something. I can't remember what they call it. But it's almost like they could also be they could be the ancestors of Atlantis.
It's very possible. And when I was doing a little bit of research on L.A., I noticed that one of his books was in regards to the Nephilim, which, to my understanding, is considered to be half angel and half human. And what I really liked about him is he has, well, not him, I haven't spoke to him yet, but my view of what I read looked like he's considering that the Nephilims are a alien human hybrid, hence the elongated skull. There's quite a few Egyptian gods/pharaohs that are noted to have had these elongated skulls. And I'm super, super excited to hear what he has to say about that and his interpretation of it. So, but that also falls into the kind of the religious aspect, what we regard as angels. And you got to remember the people of that time were naive. Yes, very advanced culturally, very advanced and civilized for their time. But for them to look upon something strange, they would consider it divine.
Exactly.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, but they had no other word for it. They had no other reason for it. It had to be magic.
Right. So I'm super excited. I hope he calls in because I'm super excited to hear what he's come up with that. That's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, it will be. I'm trying to come down with the cold. The pollen, everything's just so bad around here. It's just with the along with the Nephilim, they were considered fallen angels that I think I think it's right that had mated with the human females.
Mhm.
Is that right? Is that right?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
And so, here we are. That's kind of scary. My mom would have me drawn and quartered if she knew I was saying it like this.
Right. So would my grandma. My grandma is a pioneer Jehovah's Witness. And for this to even be a topic of discussion coming out of my mouth, she would just, I think I don't know what she'd do, but it'd be all bad. That's all I know.
Yeah.
So,
I'm pretty sure I don't like the taste of soap, and I'm sure that's what would be happening with my mom got. My grandfather was a Southern Baptist minister. I was raised Southern Baptist. Anyway, the Southern Baptist.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Kind of tough.
Well,
I did go on.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. That's the thing about co-hosts. We're going to step on each other, so we need like a code word for break.
Yeah. How about break?
Okay. All right.
Okay. We'll see if that works. I just was going to say I just sent LA an email. So we'll see that. We talked a little bit about, we haven't talked a little bit about, but later on, I hope we get to talk about the elongated skulls. And whenever that's brought up on Facebook or wherever, people automatically they jump in and say, people used to bind their children's heads to make them look that way. Granted, they did. I agree.
And that is true.
Why did they do that? Who were they imitating?
Well, I can explain that for you.
Please do.
I need to Google the name of the pharaoh real quick. I cannot think of it off of the top of my head. No pun intended. However, they saw this male come up out of the water, and he was a large male with an elongated skull. They deemed him divine and therefore called him a god and worshipped him as a god and deemed him the leader of their culture. Now, in a way to honor their god, deity, they would, when their children were born, they would bind the children's skulls as a way to honor him. So that's why it was done.
Okay. Well, I'm overlooking at, what was those, Ramses?
Oh, yes, it was. Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
I haven't gotten to him yet because I'm only up to the, third dynasty, but all of a sudden Ramses popped into my head. Ramses, like Ramses II or something like that.
That's it.
But I mean, so they were imitating somebody.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
Yes. To my understanding, it was a way to show respect, a way to honor their god, their deity, their leader, was to form their newborn babies' skulls in the shape of who they worshipped. And that's supposedly why they did it. And they have since in I have trouble with this word, archaeological digs have found. They have found infant skulls inside of these digs that have purposely been elongated, due to bindings. Kind of like there's a culture in Africa, I believe, that puts the rings around their neck to elongate their neck. and that's considered to be stunningly beautiful. So it was kind of the same purpose, except for they were honoring their deity. And that's what I understand, and I sure do. I hope LA can come in and either correct me or enlighten me and educate me and all that good stuff. So
well, I have news for you about the long necks. That was make them look better. Yeah, I got news. Yeah, I got bad news for them. It didn't work.
Right. There is us today, when we look at something like that, I could not imagine doing something like that to my daughter. Because once those rings are removed, they have no way to support their neck, and a lot of them would suffocate. Their heads would tilt over, and they would cut off their esophagus, and they would suffocate. So, once that's done, it's done for life. There's no way, there's no going back, But the skull is a little bit different. I can kind of see that there's really no long-term horrific effects from doing something like that. So, and of course, I really don't think it would matter. If they want to honor their Lord or their deity or their leader, so they would do it regardless if it would hurt their infant or not.
Yeah. Now, the only thing I can see is, our brain, those who out there that have them, not so much the. I mean, it's compact. It's compact. If your brain is held in there, it's held in there with a little bit of a fluid layer to keep the jarring to a minimum. Now, when you make this big ass skull, though, that's a lot of room. Is your brain? Your brain can't fill that huge cavern up. What do you think? Or
I don't feel that the brain, as far as a whole, changes. With the elongating of the skull, if you look at an anatomy standpoint or a physiology standpoint, instead of it being perfectly round, it's just elongated. There is still the same amount of space within the skull that there would be if the skull was perfectly round. So the brain just elongates along with the skull.
I don't agree with you there.
Okay.
But
all right.
I mean, I just can't see.
No, please enlighten me, please.
It's just like looking at an egg.
Okay.
Man, I shouldn't have said anything. Now I can't explain it. But I just feel that the skull is larger, so there's more room in it. I just think it's, I don't know whether it's physics. I guess maybe it is physics. But I don't know. I'll just have
Perhaps the theory is if they make more room in the skull, that there would be more room for brain. I know that sounds far-fetched, but we weren't there. We don't know what they were doing, so maybe they felt it would make for a more intelligent being to have a bigger, longer head, I guess,
So the longer necks is to hold more food?
I'm sorry?
So the people with the longer necks is to hold more food?
I don't know. The elongated skulls are way more fascinating to me than the elongated necks. The only reason I knew about that was I happened to catch a show on Discovery Channel and learned about it there. But, I'm not sure. I believe in Africa, the elongated neck was a sign of beauty, and the females would do that to be more attractive to their male suitors. That's what I understand. And I'm going to have to look it up now just to see if I'm right.
Yeah. So then what's the putting the big plate in your bottom lip do?
Now, there's a lot of things about their culture I don't understand, but like there's people today, I'm going to call them old school. Old school men and women find tattooing repulsive. And if you were to take a 60-year-old man versus a 20-year-old man, and put a tattooed woman in front of them, the 60-year-old man typically will be like, ew, and repulsed. But the 20-year-old man will think it's hot and sexy. So depending on what culture we're talking about, and the big plate in the lip and the big rings in the ears, or the piercings, or the tattoos, some of that could be a rite of passage in the manhood. It could be a way of attracting and making yourself look more suitable for a mate. There's all kinds of explanations for why different cultures do those things. I see it as semi-mutilation of a body, but we live in the U.S., so what we feel, would be abnormal is very normal over there, and very, in some cultures, their rite of passage is the piercing of the penis. Now, do you think for 1 second that would fly over here? Mm-mm.
Well, no, and I don't really want you to ever say that again. I'd rather I'd rather those words never pass through your lips again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. What's hey, if it works for them and it makes them look more attractive to their mates and they can breed, great. Who am I to judge? So that's kind of where I stand on that.
Okay. And you're right though on the tattoo thing. So I'm right on the edge on that.
Right.
I don't have any. I'm thinking about getting one or two, maybe just one.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them, a lot of people do consider it artwork, and some of them are very, very, very beautiful. But I know
they are.
I've known her for maybe 30 years, and the hummingbird on her left breast now looks like a freaking pterodactyl. So
right.
You got to think this stuff through.
Right. And I don't think it's so much about. I have a tattoo, okay, but the tattoo signified, not artwork for me. It signified something very special that happened to me in my life, more or less a crossroads, a traumatic death. It could signify maybe the birth of a child. And every time, that I look at that tattoo, I remember that moment, and it keeps me grounded. So I think that more people, personally, will do that to themselves to more of an expression than trying to impress anyone. It's about, for me, I'm not going to speak for everyone else. For me, I like to look at it and remember that moment in time, because I am getting older and my memory's fading. So when I look at that, I never forget. It's there forever. And I will never forget that precious memory, So
exactly.
it's kind of, to each his own. And, I don't comprehend the sleeves from the wrist up. I don't understand that. But, it's their choice. And we have to respect that. Not understand it, but respect it.
Some of them are very, very beautiful. Some are very pretty. Well, guess what, Michelle?
What's that?
We have a caller, and I hope it's
Yay!
LA. Yeah, LA, is this you? Hello, LA. Well, I have him on the air here.
LA, we're not hearing you. If this is you, can you try to hang up and call right back?
Area code 310. Who am I speaking with here? Nobody? Okay. Well, so I have an email from him saying that there's just a mess up on the times, and this area code 310 has dropped off. And
maybe he's going to try to recall.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Me too.
Because I do have area code 618, but I have an idea. I know who that is. Okay, here they are again. Here they are again.
Okay.
We're going to try this again. L.A., is this you?
Yes, it is. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you great. Welcome to
Great.
Paranormal Geeks Radio, sir.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm very happy you're here, and I know you have a busy night tonight. But so we're going to just kind of get right into this a little bit.
Sounds good.
We've been talking a little bit. My name's Jim. I also have a co-host tonight. Her name is Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. Hi, Jim.
Hi,
Hello.
LA. It is an honor to speak to you tonight. I'm looking forward to asking you some real quick questions. So let's get into this. Thank you so much.
The honor is all mine, and thanks for having me on.
Okay.
Well, you're on Coast to Coast tonight, and that's where I first heard you. I believe it was last year or maybe 2 years ago. And it's like, man, somehow I gotta talk to this man. And so here I am. I'm like a kid in a candy store. We've been talking a little bit about the kicking around the elongated skulls, and we were saying that whenever you bring this up in a conversation, someone always says yes, but the people they found their children's skulls and made them that.
Right.
And it's yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. They did, but why did they do that?
Right. Exactly.
Why? And they can't come up with an answer. Well, I don't know. Well, they were imitating something. And in my opinion, they had to be imitating something. And you have a pretty good idea for what this something or somebody was, don't you?
Well, look, we were in Peru for 15 days. This is all in the new book, On the Trail of a Nephilim. It's also in Watcher 6. But we encountered many elongated skulls while we were down there, and these were not the results of headboarding. Now, the ones that we saw that were headboarded, it's pretty simple to see. I mean, it's just, okay, it's a human skull and it's been headboarded, and it's usually slightly distorted, and the human skull consists of 4 plates which are sutured, that they appear to be sutures, which hold these plates together. There's a frontal plate, 2 parietal plates on the top of the skull and wrapping around the side, and in the rear of the skull there's the occipital plate. Well, a human skull has 4 of these. I mean, all 4 plates create the human skull. The skulls that we took and examined in Peru, many of them only had 1 parietal plate, which just should not be. I've had this looked at by 3 medical doctors, 1 forensic anthropologist, and all of them agree that, not sure what they're looking at, but whatever it is, it's anomalous. And that speaks volumes. We had one of the hair tested through a machine by the name, it's called Raman spectroscopy. What this does is it measures the molecular structure of the item that you're examining and then plots that on a graph. So you can examine, let's say, 4 different hair samples, which is what we did. The first hair sample we did was a control sample, a human hair sample. The second was another control sample, a human hair that had been dyed. The third was the red hair from Paracas. I say red because it has an auburn cast to it. The auburn hair from Paracas, Peru. Excuse me. The fourth hair was a hair that allegedly came from a person who had been abducted and had been forced to have sex with a so-called alien hybrid. It was a blondish colored hair. So you put all these in a Raman spectroscopy, fired the machine up, and it printed out the results on a graph. And the human hair kind of looks like the letter O. It just kind of starts off, if you were to cut an O in half, that's what it looks like. It kind of starts in the center, halfway up the O, and then creates an arc, and then just kind of dead ends. The dyed human hair starts off on the left side of the graph, and then just like a rocket taking off, it just takes off horizontally and then goes vertical very quickly. So we can see what that looked like. Then we took the red hair or the auburn hair from the Paracas skull and also the hair from the man who had been abducted by the so-called hybrid creature, which he was forced to have sex with. And these 2 hairs, Jim and Michelle, they track on the graph together. Every little jog, every little tittle, those things are just, right in track with each other. It's mind-boggling. Now, when we saw that, we about fell out of our chairs. We were just blown away. Now, is that conclusive proof that there's a link? No. But what it is at least it's a step towards validating our theory that what happened in antiquity is now repeating itself again in modernity, in our present time. And although it's slightly different than what it was, we're getting the same type of hybrid creatures. So I believe that there was genetic manipulation happening in Paracas, Peru, around 3,000 years ago. This also fits the timeline of the diaspora. What I mean by that is when the children of Israel pushed into Canaan, or the Promised Land, the Nephilim were there. And there's no disputing that. The Nephilim were there. It says so in the Scripture. There are over 20 different tribes of Nephilim in the area. And we believe, I say we, there's a bunch of us, my colleagues and I, believe that as Joshua and Caleb pushed westward to try to conquer this land, many of these tribes fled. They fled northward and came down, we believe, in Ohio Valley. Others hopped on boats and sailed across the Atlantic and eventually settled in Paracas. That's the theory that we're going on. And, of course, that theory completely destroys the Darwinian paradigm. If these creatures are not part of the so-called Native Americans that came across the Beringian or the Bering Strait, the whole Beringian theory at the end of the last ice age, and who were these people? And how did they get there? And, of course, what I've discovered is that anything, what I mean by that, any other paradigm that people would uncover that may shed new light on what we're doing on this planet and how we got here, that may challenge the status quo, which, of course, is the Darwinian paradigm, is immediately dealt with. And Ben Stein, in his groundbreaking movie, Expelled, documents this. Any teacher that even mentions the idea of intelligent design loses tenure, is fired. I mean, it's unbelievable. That, my friends, is intellectual fascism. And that's the whole point of writing a new book and our new DVD, which, by the way, we've got a special. You get both of them for $40, so you save $10. Would normally be $50. But
I saw that the Coast to Coast special.
Yeah, Coast to Coast special. But that's why the book was written, to shed light on the fact that there's been a cover-up. And we went to Peru because there's still places down there where you can go and see for yourself evidence of what I believe is the Nephilim. Now, other researchers have gone down there, and they have a different paradigm, and that is of, this must be genetic manipulation by ET. And this is what we're up against. What I mean by that, there are only two worldviews, in my opinion, that we can examine and look at this phenomena, and then decide which worldview we're going to kind of go with. And in my opinion, those two worldviews, and there's no other one as far as I know. One is, of course, the ancient astronaut, or ancient alien theory, believing that somehow we were genetically created by extraterrestrials thousands of years ago, genetically manipulated. They started the world's earliest civilizations, and now back at this critical juncture in history, they'll reveal themselves again, which is fine. That, of course, is the ancient alien paradigm. Many people in the New Age are also holding to that paradigm, and that's fine. People can believe what they want to believe. I'm not here to, dissuade anybody or twist anybody's arm to believe like I believe. Last thing I want to do. However, that being said, what we see is there's another paradigm here, and that paradigm speaks of a race of beings, and they are listed as fallen angels, but the term angel has been so misused that people don't really understand it. And when I say angel, it comes with a whole set of usually in most people it comes with a set of baggage that people really don't know how to deal with, and so it sort of does a disservice to even saying that. But whatever these beings are, they are highly intelligent. They have not extraterrestrial. They have what I would call superhuman power, powers that defy our laws of physics. And I believe in this paradigm that these fallen angelic creatures came down to Earth, had sex with the women, and the reason for that, once again, they're messing with the gene pool. They're trying to create man in their own image. That's the bottom line. And the results of this, of course, are the Nephilim. What's interesting is we get a glimpse of this in the pseudepigraphical book, big, long, fancy word, means it's a book that's written by someone else, but giving credit to Enoch. It's thousands of years old, the Book of Enoch, found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, quoted in the Judeo-Christian Bible at least 70 times. And we can at least appreciate the book's historicity. But what it does show is that these angelic beings did come down and had sex with the women. And the offspring of this unholy union was, of course, the Nephilim. And the scripture then says, and also afterwards. And in my opinion, and also afterwards means exactly what it says. And also afterwards. When the fallen angels, when the sons of God went into the daughters of men and had children by them. So it's just very clear to me that this is ongoing. I've written about this extensively in the Cosmic Chess Match and told the reason for this. What most people don't understand is that we are in the midst of a cosmic war. And this cosmic war literally has been raging in an unseen dimension for we don't really know how long. But now it is spilling out over onto this planet. We are seeing more supernatural occurrences than ever before, more UFO activity than ever before. The abduction phenomena is ongoing. The breeding program, which some people poo-poo and tell us it's not happening, and I just point them back to, excuse me, here's a man that has an implant in his knee, which we just looked at, and I've examined the implants under a scanning electron microscope in a lab. We've done EDX tests on these things. We know what they are. Something's going on here. This is not illusion or delusion. It is real. We spoke with Dr. David Jacobs recently on the so-called alien abduction phenomenon breeding program. And I don't agree with everything Jacobs has to say, but the man, you got to give the man credit. He's been in the field a long time, and he's done the research, the hard research. And in my opinion, and not only talking to Jacobs, but in talking to the people that have actually been abducted, these people are terrified. One gentleman who we interviewed recently was abducted from the time he was 5 years old. So it gives you an idea of what these people go through. This is the gentleman with the implant right below his knee. And we will be conducting a extraction of that implant at some point in the near future. The next step after the X-ray is to get a CAT scan, get another look at this thing. And then we'll be doing some other tests on it. And eventually we will take this out. He wants it out. This is what we're up against. And this begs the question, where did this guy get it? And why is it there? It's hardcore physical evidence that something is happening. And whatever that something is, if we believe in what the abductees tell us, they are being taken against their will and being forced into all sorts of bizarre experimentation. And then once again, against their will, these implants are then inserted into them. And I just believe that all this ties back into the biblical narrative discussing the fallen angels and what they do. And that's my take on it.
All right, L.A. Wow. You obviously have an enormous amount of passion for this topic, and you are ever so gaining the respect of myself and Jim out of every word that comes out of your mouth. I have a couple questions here. With what you just said, do you feel, well, let me start with this one. What is the purpose of the inbreeding between the species? What do you think they're trying to accomplish by breeding with us?
What they're trying to do is they're trying to create a hybrid race that has human properties but also angelic properties. And they did this with the Nephilim thousands of years ago. This implant, I believe, will genetically alter anyone who takes it. and eventually people will line up around the block and want to take it. It will lengthen the host's lifespan. Let's say you'll live between 300 and 500 years disease-free, or maybe 500 to 700 years disease-free. And that type of longevity and good health would be desirable to just about any person on this planet. And the problem is, when you take this, it will give you what they will call a DNA upgrade, but it will change your DNA so you will not be human anymore, human in the true sense of the word. Now, what's interesting about this is we are seeing movie after movie, film, TV shows, all dealing with this. Everything starting from X-Men to Avatar and everything in between. We see that this is desirable, that it's actually people kind of want this stuff. And it begs the question, District 9 is a perfect example of that. What is human? Yeah, exactly. At what point do we cease our humanity? At what point, in other words, and I'm not talking about a cyborg, someone that's got an artificial limb. That's not what I'm talking about. But at what point do we change enough, is our DNA altered enough to where we're not human beings as let's say, they were created to be? A perfect example of this is a person that is a UFO researcher in Australia. Her name is Mary Rodwell. I blogged on this just recently and discussed, she's talking about Homo Noetica, which, the new man type of thing. And it's what she's saying is that whoever, when they show up, and she's espousing, and I've never met her or talked to her, face to face or read any of her material other than online, and I'm sure she's not familiar with me, but she's come to the same conclusion that when ET does show up, they will have a DNA upgrade, which will be the new man. And that's what she's promulgating on her website.
Okay.
And that's exactly what I've been warning against for the last 15 years.
Right. This is leading directly into my next question. Once again, for the listeners, we are speaking with L.A. Marzulli. I believe I pronounced that correctly. Yes.
Marzulli.
If you would like to call Marzulli, okay. And if you would like to call in and speak to him directly, you can do so at 347-826-9996. With what you just said, is it plausible at all that this could be the missing link?
I would say, first of all, I don't believe in the Darwinian theory at all. I don't believe in the missing link. When Crick, remember this theory has been shoved down our throats for the last 150 years. Let me tell you why I don't believe in it. Let me get some water here. Hold on.
Okay.
DNA was sort of discovered, much like Columbus discovered America, and by these two British scientists, Watson and Crick. And Crick was a vexed man. He looked at the deoxyribonucleic double helix spiral of life, as I prefer to call it. And there's a quote that I use in my presentations, and it goes something like this, that in Crick's estimation, you could take all the time in the universe with this sort of what they would call universal SOP, whatever, just whatever's out there, all the time in the world, and you're not going to create a single DNA strand. It's just not going to happen. He was totally, absolutely perplexed by what he was looking at with DNA. And frankly, when Ben Stein sits down with Richard Dawkins and poses the same question, where did the first self-replicating molecule come from? And all Dawkins can offer is the same thing Mary Rodwell offers, and frankly the same conclusion Crick came to, that someone somewhere in another galaxy, far, far away, a long time ago, somehow created us and then seeded us through the universe. That theory is called panspermia. And what's interesting with all this, they get something right in the sense that, there's a creator. It's like everyone looks at this and goes, wait a minute, this thing's way too complex. Somebody created this thing. But what they won't do is look at a deity. They won't say that it must have been someone like God. And Ben Stein makes that point. Like intelligent design's okay as long as that the intelligent designer isn't God. And again, Crick was a vexed man, looking at the DNA, the complexity of it, the precision in which it works and which it's made. It's mind-boggling. I don't pretend to understand it for a second. I only know that as human beings, the idea that somehow we just evolved over a gazillion years, when you really stop and think about it, it's the theater of absurdity. Surely if a Darwinian model was correct, we would see some species somewhere becoming somewhere else. But because Darwin did not know about the deoxyribonucleic double helix, then he would, he couldn't weigh in on it. And I think he would have rescinded his theory had he known about DNA. Because what we see in DNA, Michelle and James, is this. Penguins beget penguins. Whales beget whales. Hummingbirds always produce hummingbirds. You don't have to worry that a hummingbird is somehow going to produce a leopard. You don't have to worry about that. Stop feeding the hummingbirds. We might get a leopard, honey. We don't know. It doesn't work that way. Right. And it happens over and over and over and over endlessly. I rest my case.
Fantastic. You've, I was going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to hand over to Jim because I know he's chomping at the bit. He's got some questions he wants to ask you. My third and final question for you would be where you were talking about the alien hybrid with the blondish hair. There's been a lot of speculation that the people of Atlantis or the Aryans, et cetera, and, could have been a supreme race. Could this fall into that at any point?
Well, yeah, I think that, remember, the whole Atlantis legend is mythos. We've got Plato who talked about it. So far, we really haven't seen any hard evidence, but that doesn't mean it didn't exist. It certainly could have existed. But again, and this is why I believe in the biblical narrative, okay? The biblical narrative, unlike Nostradamus, that's right about 40% of the time, or the Mayan calendar, which is a total joke. Thank you very much. And all the people, look, I wrote over a year before that thing ever happened, and you can go back and look. I went on the record, nothing's going to happen. This whole thing is one big red herring. If you want to know what prophecy really is about, watch the Middle East, because that's where all the prophecy comes down. And prophecy starts from the book of Genesis and goes through to the book of Revelation. And I'm not talking religion here, folks, because, when you hear that word Bible, most people go, I'd run to the front door. I get it. It's been so dumbed down and so confused and so muckied up with some of the nonsense you see on TV. I run, too, for the nearest exit, trust me. But what's interesting is when we examine the prophetic thread from Genesis to the book of Revelation, we see that it is 100% accurate, 100% of the time, without deviation. And oftentimes, these prophecies that are listed are called out with great specificity. And you don't find that in any other book on this planet, quite frankly, which means that the author of this book, I don't care what we call it, is somehow outside space-time as we know it, and knows the end before the beginning and beginning from the end, and calls it out a priori ahead of time. And that's just incredible when you think about it. That's absolutely mind-boggling. So, that being said, what did prophecy talk about? And one of my favorites is the fact that in the latter days, which is where we are now, there'll be wars and rumors of wars, famines, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places, and troublesome times. And let's focus for a second on the writer of this 2,000 years ago who claims earthquakes in diverse places. Well, that's an absurd statement. How could someone 2,000 years ago claim that there'd be earthquakes in diverse places? There's no way to track this 2,000 years ago. In fact, there's no way to track any type of an earthquake until modernity. And now my iPhone rings every time something happens. So, 6.0 or greater. So what we see is that the prophecy written 2,000 years ago is being fulfilled because, first of all, we can track earthquakes in diverse places, which we couldn't do 50 years ago. So now we're in the window of time. And see, that's what I'm talking about, great specificity. That's crazy. I mean, think about that 2,000 years ago. To pen something like that is just mind-boggling. Well, look at the pestilence. Look at the record-breaking cicada outpouring supposedly happening on the East Coast. Look at the plague of locusts that both Egypt and Israel just had to deal with. Think of the SARS virus. Why do movies like World War Z, where there's a genetic mutation due to his eye, right? But I mean, why are they showing us this stuff? Because frankly, it's a reality. I mean, they've got stuff in the lab.
It's preconditioning. I believe it's
well, it is. I
preconditioning.
agree. It's total conditioning. Absolutely.
I think Jim had a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
Jim?
First, I hope that Hollywood's not right. But moving on, you mentioned also earlier about the red-headed, the red hair found on these skulls.
Yeah.
Now, there are also a lot of ancient giants found here in North America that also had red hair.
Yes.
Whether it was natural or whether it was dyed, with henna or however they got the color. Do you think there's any correlation between the giants they found here and the elongated skulls in Peru?
Well, look, there are about 20 different Nephilim tribes: Rephaim, Zamzumim, the Emims, the Nephilim, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites. There's all these different tribes in the area, and some of them have different genetic characteristics because their names denote what they look like. And I don't think all of them were giants. Some of them obviously were, but perhaps not all of them. And I think that they fled northward and also across the Atlantic. And I've written about this in the book On Betrayal with the Nephilim. Thor Heyerdahl proved decades ago that you could sail a raft, Kon-Tiki, from the western shore of South America and wind up in Hawaii, or that's what they proved, right? And then he went, Ra, which is basically the same deal. They made a papyrus raft, I believe, and sailed across the Atlantic and wound up in South America. It can be done. Absolutely, it can be done all day long. So I'm not impressed by those who believe in isolationism. In other words, that believe that somehow during the last ice age that so-called Native Americans came over here hunting megafauna. In other words, woolly mammoth and all this stuff. And I just don't believe that for a second. When the Native Americans came over here, for instance, and they saw the Great Circle Mound in Ohio, they said that we did not build this. This was here when we got here. Same thing down in Peru. When you look at huge megalithic structures like Sacsayhuaman, where the stones weigh 120 tons each or even heavier. And when the Spanish got there, they were just their minds were blown by what they were looking at. And so they said, where did these stones come from? And the legend was, well, the giants moved them. It was here when we got here. So, I believe in that narrative. I believe in the biblical narrative. I think the deeper I go, the more I realize that what was written and the historicity of the biblical narrative is actually something that is closer and perhaps gives us a better insight into the origins of the human race than Darwinism, which just tells us that somehow magically, all this evolved. But it never tells you the mechanism of how it evolved. It's like, let me just give you one example. When we look at the reproductive system of any entity, any animal or mammal on the planet, let's say, bird, fish, animal, right? Everything has a reproductive system. There's an egg and there's sperm. It's pretty much the way it all works. Well, where did all that come from? How did that system of male and female even, how did that come into being? How was it able to, you start going back and it's like, okay. So they try to tell us that somehow, these simple life forms became more complex. But there's no mechanism to make them more complex because we know that the DNA would have to be altered to make them more complex. You see the way it goes? It's just, when you really start prying back the layers of the deceit of Darwinism, it's just like, oh boy, bankrupt, there's nothing there. It's just smoke and mirrors. That's all it is. There's nothing there. There's no way to get from A to Z. You can't do it because of the DNA.
Right. Jim and Jim, it sounds like Jim and Jim and myself were discussing earlier, prior to the show, we were trying to, with our non-experienced brains like yours, as to why these, explain what we were talking about earlier, Jim, about the elongated skulls and the brain space and.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about, you have these parents or whoever, the noblemen, whoever, that found these kids' skulls. And this is just something that just popped into my head. You have this huge elongated skull, and where's the brain's just going to be rattling around in there, isn't it? I mean, the brain didn't actually. It didn't fill the whole skull, did it? You haven't. Well, how would you know? You weren't there. But what are your ideas on that?
Well, what we did is when we actually measured we used rice, and we poured the rice in control samples and then measured the amount of rice and weighed them. And what we found is that one of the elongated skulls was about 25 to 30% more brain capacity than our control sample, which we found very interesting. So, this stuff is very inconclusive. We're not sure what we're looking at in the sense of, look, I've had 3 MDs look at this thing, and all 3 thought it was something less than human. In other words, looking at it, they're kind of going like, well, it's human looking, but we're not sure what it is.
Okay. I had a theory, and correct me if I'm wrong. We had an Egyptian pharaoh. What was his name, Jim?
Good Lord. Ramses.
Yeah.
Ramses
he supposedly came up out of the water with the elongated skull, became a deity, a god, and a pharaoh of this Egyptian culture. Now, one of the theories is, I'm sure you're aware of, is that they would bind the children's skulls after birth to as a show of respect for possibly their god or their deity, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that I was thinking of, because I do have a medical background, nothing like what we're talking about here, but I was thinking that even in the natural human with the elongated skull, in my opinion, which is not a credible one, we'll just put that out there, would be that no matter how they bound the skull, that the brain would adjust and fill up the skull cavity appropriately. Now, you're saying you found skulls in Peru over 3,000 years ago that were infant skulls as well, and due to the suturing of the skull itself, it did not match with the normal human type skull. So you're saying that it's very, very possible and plausible and probably accurate that they have found skulls of actual Nephilim babies, correct?
Well, that's what we're working on. It's not conclusive yet, but it fits the theory. These people in Paracas, for instance, show up around 3,000 years ago, okay? And that fits our timeline. Is it 3,000? Is it 3,500 years? We don't know. The bottom line is it's that window. The conquest of Canaan was about 3,500 years ago. So it fits the timeline. Where did these people come from? No one knows. And they settle along the coast in Paracas. They're not, we had Brian Forrester, a colleague and good friend. In fact, I dedicated On the Trail of a Nephilim to Brian Forrester, just because of his just a great guy. And I wanted to dedicate it to him in honor of his work. And Brian said that genetic testing was done in the area, and that to determine that whoever these people were, they had no connection at all to the indigenous people in South America, absolutely zero connection. They were from somewhere else, completely different. And these are where these elongated skulls are found. They're not found in the Inca, although the cradle headboarding is done, but not like this. It's a whole different deal. Look, I've shown this to 3 medical doctors. In fact, let me just read you a report from an MD who will not come on the record with his name because he can't, because we all know what happens when you come on the record.
Absolutely.
Yeah, unless you do what I do. Okay, so we got let me see here. Hi, LA. Someone would have a very difficult time convincing me that this is a human skull. It has too many bizarre abnormalities. I was surprised at the size. I was expecting much larger. We believe this was a female. Are you thinking this was a child or an adolescent? If it was, that lends even more credence to the sole parietal plate, as the suture line would be well intact like the others had it ever been there. The first thing that struck me was the hump or bump rise protrusion at the posterior most aspect of the frontal bone that runs along the entire top of the frontal bone just before it joins the parietal. Lots of fancy jargon. Put your hand on your forehead and go to the very top of your skull. There's no ridge there. This skull has a ridge which goes clear across it. It's a very well-defined ridge. It's a hump or a bump. That's not normal. The doctor continues, this is not normal. You know how smooth the human skull is as one runs fingers over one's forehead backwards over the skull. Very abnormal. There is no evidence whatsoever that there were two parietal bones, not even the slightest remnant of a suture line. Unbelievably abnormal. You know this, I'm just being complete. The nasal bone was a disaster area. The letter that came with this was a cast that we sent the doctor. Said this was totally accurate as to the original. What on earth are all the little bones in there? It doesn't seem to have a broken in multiple places, yielding all those bones. The bottom line is he continues with his assessment of the skull, and he's just blown away. Like everybody I've shown it to in the medical community, including my own doctor, was just blown away by what they were looking at. And depending on their paradigm, well, maybe this is a missing link, just exactly what you would say. Maybe this is something in the evolutionary model. You see, I look at what they call Cro-Magnon, and there's another example for Cro-Magnon. Cro-Magnon might be Nephilim. See, and that's what they don't. They never ever go to that side of the aisle. There can't be some sort of a creator involved in all this, and yet,
Right.
Let me ask you this. How do any of us really work? How do you work, Michelle? Jim, how do you work? How are you interfacing with your body right now? How, when you're listening to my words, do you understand language? Because your hearing is picking up on it and your brain's processing it. How's that work?
Yes.
How does that work? They don't know. Nobody knows.
It's incredible. And
it is incredible.
That was one of my last questions that I was going to ask you. The difference between the Cro-Magnon and the Neanderthal. In your opinion, steering away from Darwinism, do you believe at that point that that's where the interbreeding started to take effect, to take us out of the Neanderthal into the Cro-Magnon? Because there's a lot of speculation or whatever, that there was a huge change in the species. Do you believe at that point between the Neanderthal and the Cro-Magnon that that's where this was started to take place, the interbreeding?
Well, again, we don't know. I mean, we just don't know. So this is why we move cautiously. I don't have all the answers. I'm not claiming to have all the answers. I'm just saying that something is going on. We need to examine it. We need to look at it. I don't believe in the Darwinian paradigm. I never have. And I think it's a hoax. There is a supernatural. There really is. And
amen to that. Yeah.
And that's what I believe in. And we are inundated with the supernatural.
Okay. All right. I'm going to back off for just a moment. It has been an honor. I've learned so much. I'm going to let Jim take over because I know he's just doing at the pod to ask you questions. So if I don't get to speak to you again before we close the show, it was an honor. L.A., it was a true honor. And I really look forward to
the honor is all mine, Michelle. Thank you for having me come on.
All right, Jim.
Michelle had a show a couple nights ago where she had a guest. It was Sunday night. A guest talking about the Nephilim, and I hopped over on her show. And
Sumatra and Sumerian,
Yeah, and I knew that she would be interested in this show. That's why I asked her to co-host tonight. I knew she'd have a bunch of questions for me. But I something that just kind of struck me a little bit earlier was, what about the story of David and Goliath? It's been a long time since I've read this, but could Goliath, he was a very large man, Nephilim?
Absolutely. Without doubt. absolutely, without doubt, Goliath was a Nephilim, in my opinion.
Okay. I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to find that story and read it and see if it does say anything about a tribe that he came from or anything, and do a little remembering from 40 years ago or longer. It's been a while. I know one other thing well, first off, we didn't get a real good introduction of you. We brought you right on, but I want to read off a list of books that you've written. You've touched on a couple of them, but I looked through this today, and I can't wait until payday, Friday, when I can start getting some of these. And some of these are out of print. Some of these are no longer even available. But on the trail of the Nephilim, as America has done to Israel, again, God speaks, God reveals his hidden secrets. The cosmic chess match, which I'm definitely going to get. Nephilim, the unlikely deception, another one I'm going to get. I hope I get my overtime on this check. The alien interventions, politics, prophecy, and the supernatural, which in a minute I want to touch on that in a little bit. The ninth generation, and I think I've missed a couple. I didn't mention the ones that were no longer available. But you have quite a few books here, sir, and I can't wait to get a hold of them.
Well, I really appreciate that. The Nephilim Trilogy, we're in the process of getting a reprint. We're going to take all three books and put them under a new cover with a very large binding, so we'll be able to buy the whole book, or I should say all three books in one binder, which I think will be great, and that'll happen in the fall, hopefully.
Okay, what else? What can you tell us about the Watchers? I've watched, I think, 4 or 5 of them. I think 4 of them. Very, very interesting conversations. Can you tell us a little bit about the Watchers?
Well, the Watchers series came from me being very disgruntled with the History Channel's Ancient Aliens show, because they would interview me for about 3 hours the first time and about 3 hours the second time, and in the course of that interview, most of it wound up on the cutting floor, and I was probably had about a minute, maybe 2 minutes in the first season and a little bit more in the second season. And I went to my friend Rick Shaw, who I knew was a filmmaker, and I called him up one day and said, "Rick, you want to make a movie about UFOs?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "How much money do we have?" And I go, "Nothing. I'll be right over." And that's sort of the way it worked. That's sort of the way we started the thing, and we carry that tradition. We call it guerrilla filmmaking. We've got 2 cameras. He's got one. I've got one. But mine's just a reserve backup. They're both identical. And we shoot these things, and Rick becomes the videographer, the director, and the editor all in one. And, of course, the co-producer with me. I'm the host, the co-producer, and we both write these things together. And so we just returned from Philadelphia. We're working on Watcher 7, which will be probably well over an hour, documenting UFO, the hard evidence. And what we're doing is, okay, we can look at the lights in the sky and the UFO stuff. I get all that. We're looking more for hard evidence, which is why we get into the implants. We've got some artifacts, which we'll be examining in a lab and doing tests on those. There's other artifacts, which I'm not at liberty to talk about. We're flying to Mexico to examine one of those artifacts. So we're on the trail. We're looking at this stuff. And that's basically the Watchers series looks at everything from a biblical perspective, but we're not like beating people over the head with it. Our default position is to go back to the biblical narrative because we feel it's the truth. But we don't start quoting scriptures and all that kind of stuff. We just don't do that. We let the audience figure out where they want to fall and what they want to believe. We'll have people from all different paradigms, all different walks of life, all different points of view. We're not afraid to do that. And we're not afraid to allow them to say their piece and to present their information. And we may have a contrary opinion to that. We may bring in another guest who has a completely different contrary opinion to what they've just stated. But that's okay. That's what the film should be about, especially a documentary, to try to show all sides, try to show people what is going on. And, of course, it's our show, and I have a paradigm that I embrace, and from time to time I will weigh in on what I believe is the truth of the matter.
And you handle it very delicately. I mean, you're not.
Thank you.
Like you said, you're not shoving it down your throat. You're not showing up at people's doors, knocking on them, and you got to listen to me. Because a lot of things I didn't agree with, but it was still very enthralling. I just soak this stuff up. That's just the way. It'd be a very bad, odd world if we all agreed, and it'd just be a very boring world.
Yes.
So, but I really like those. Now, is The Watchers out on DVD?
Yeah, they are. Watcher 6 is out. You can go to my website and get all that, and lamarzulli.net, and order On the Trail of a Nephilim and Watcher 6 and save $10.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I posted that up in our in the chat room a little earlier. I do this every show. I start to say something and it just freaking leaves me. Oh, on your blog, there was a video of a gentleman that worked
CIA, NASA?
CIA, yeah.
And NSA, rather?
Right. No. This is the one where he actually worked in the White House and was in on the story with Eisenhower attacking Area 51.
Right.
Where he couldn't get the answers. Eisenhower couldn't get the answers. And he's, by God, I'm going to go get them. It's a very good video. It got some different pans in the reviews at the bottom. But what do you think about that? Do you think? I hesitate to say, do you think that really happened? But do you think that really happened?
Well, yeah, and here's why. We've heard rumors to the such for decades now that this kind of stuff was going on, the government covering things up, and I believe that nothing has changed from the Eisenhower years to where we are now. There's a covert black ops government, shadow government, if you will, who's got control of this information and will not allow it to come out. And I believe that it's very possible that the Eisenhower administration may have threatened like this. And that, of course, ties in with Eisenhower then flying out to California and having his little 2-day or whatever it was dental emergency, where he kind of goes off the grid for a while and then resurfaces, which gives him, other researchers have speculated that gave him plenty of time to go to Area 51, S4, and see for himself the crash, saucer, perhaps surviving ET if there was any, that type of thing.
If there was any president in the last 50, 60 years, it would have been him that would have done this, that would have pulled that card and said that made that threat. Other than maybe Kennedy, but I really doubt it. I think that it had to have been Eisenhower.
Mm-hmm.
If people out there, if you get a chance, definitely go on the blog and take a look at that. Take a look at that video. Now, you talked about the prophecies that they're coming. The prophecies are here now, aren't they?
Well, when we look at what's going on in the Middle East, surely we can agree that something's going on. The prophecies state that Israel would be regathered from the four corners of the earth and reestablished in their ancient homeland, and that's exactly what we see. It's called the time of Jacob's trouble, not Bob, Fred, or Ernie's. And the reason why Jacob is for a reason. It hinges around the nation of Israel. We are in a cosmic chess match. There's a cosmic war going on. It's ongoing. It's getting ready to reach a climax. And when we begin to examine the ancient biblical texts, specifically in the light of prophecy, we begin to realize that this thing is not going away. And look, I don't have all the answers, but that's the paradigm that I hold to. And I've got another 10 minutes with you, and then I've got to get out of here.
Okay,
so to rest up for coast tonight.
Right. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm sorry, I almost let time get away from me. I'm sorry about that. It's easy with a guest like you. Is there anything, do you think there's anything in the prophecies about what's going on right now with our government? With everything just seems to be, wait 2 days, there's a new scandal. About a great country falling or anything?
Well, not really. America, and I've written about this in Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural extensively. I believe that America is about to be taken out. We're already in the decline. We've already gotten to the point where everything we fought for in the American Revolution, or much, I should say, much that we fought for in the American Revolution has now fallen by the wayside. We fought against taxation without representation. We are taxed to death in this country, absolutely taxed to death. And, until the turn of the 20th century, there were no taxes. And here we are, we're tax everywhere. And this is why we fought the American Revolution, not to be taxed. Meanwhile, these idiots in office, some of them, just gave the Muslim Brotherhood $450 million. So here we are taking good taxpayers' money and throwing it to the Muslim Brotherhood over in Egypt. So what are these guys smoking? Go figure. They're just trying to bribe the Muslim Brotherhood the same way they bribed Mubarak, try to control what's going on over there. And as Ron Paul would say, why are we the world's policemen? Why is it up to us to go around and fix everything? It's just unconscionable.
Right.
Exactly. It's really depressing. And it's like with this gentleman, this Edward Snowden, that's let all these this whistleblower. I mean, now they're trying to paint him as a traitor.
Yeah, I know. Unbelievable.
I don't. It is. I mean, this guy. Yeah. What's the difference between what he's done and what, say, our president did about letting out who killed Osama bin Laden, about the whole SEAL team and everything? That was all. That stuff you just don't talk about either. But my God, he's not being chased off for Hong Kong.
If we get into the whole political arena, we can spend the rest of the night talking about it.
We're not going to do that.
The country is so, in my opinion, so bankrupt on so many levels. The Federal Reserve, which was never supposed to be in place, that started it all, and we're just so far down the river. It's hard to imagine coming back. We look at the country. Let me put it to you this way, real simply, and I'm sure I'll be called a racist and all sorts of other nasty names because of this. But if you let 20 million illegal aliens into this country through our southern border, and which we've done, that changes the very fabric of the culture. It changes and begins to change the culture. Changing the culture is good. Dumbing down the population where people have no idea of what the difference between freedom and liberty really is, no idea of what the Constitution is, and expect a government handout. One of my favorite clips from the last election, Obama gave me a cell phone. There you go. Obama gave me a cell phone. And it's just unbelievable to me. That's where we are. And you do that, and with political correctness, we no longer can say anything or do anything without the modern-day fascists beating us over the head, telling us you can't do this or you can't say that. Or, one of my favorites was this week at graduation where the guy starts talking about the Constitution and they silence his mic. It's just a bunch of little Nazis wherever we are. We can't offend anybody. Okay, so we won't offend anybody, we'll all just go to sleep. We've just become a bunch of namby-pambies, and I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
That's what they want. It's easier to...
That's what they want.
It's over. Now, one thing about the Obama phone lady, they tracked her down, and she's very upset with the president now. She's done a 180 on him.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't like him anymore. Well, I'll tell you what, LA. I have. This has been a great show. I want to thank you again for being on. Can you tell everybody real quick how they can find your blog and find your website and everything?
Yeah, just go to the blog site is lamarzulli.wordpress.com. And, of course, if you want to avail yourself of any of the resources that we have, that is lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net.
Okay, well, thank you again for being on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and it's one of the shows I've been looking forward to. And sometime, they have you back on again. We can pick up where we left off and keep on running.
Sounds good, Jim. Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It really has been an honor. Thank you, sir.
All righty. God bless both of you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Wow.
Yeah, I just disconnected one of our callers, our listeners, by mistake.
That's okay. He needed to go anyway. Wow.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, but we had someone listening, and I disconnected her instead of...
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, it wasn't your fault. It was mine. Yeah, that was a great show, wasn't it?
Fantastic. What an enormous amount of information that I am personally spinning right now. I'm spinning. And he just clarified and cleared up a lot of the questions that I've had for a long time. And what an incredible honor. I mean, seriously, he just broke it down like I've never heard anybody break it down before, and it all makes sense. Everything he said makes sense. Wow.
And we didn't have a very big turnout. Well, hardly any at all. Thank you, Michelle, for being in chat. We only have one person in chat, and there are a lot of people are going to be kicking themselves in the ass for not being in here and listening to the show. And they're going to be listening to this.
I promoted on my end, and there's people listening, honey. They're just not in chat. Okay.
Okay. Well, they sure as hell better be, because they have questions. They're going to listen to this and have questions, and then realize, crap, I should have been in there. And what about this? He didn't answer this. There's so many doors open here tonight.
Yes.
So many doors open.
What an honor.
And Ronnie, I'm sorry I disconnected you. I apologize. So yeah. Oh. Where'd that come from? Wow. Well, as everybody usually knows, this is when you hear that music, we're going to give away a ticket to South Park. No, not South Park. Mid-South.
You're silly.
South Park. That was
That's great.
That was wrong.
Kill Kitty.
Still the wrong. God. Anyway, ticket to South Park. God. The Mid-South. So, I'll tell you what, the first person who calls in, first person okay, Michelle? Would that be a good one?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. First person that calls in wins a ticket. Yay. Let's do it.
Yep. And the number is 347-826-996. And we already have. Holy cow. We got somebody. The area code 269. How are you this evening?
I am good. How are you?
I'm living the dream. Who am I speaking with here?
Terry.
I'm sorry, did you say Carrie?
Terry, yep, or Teresa, whichever one.
Okay, well, there's quite a big difference there. Let's see, I can say either one of them pretty well. So I'll go with Carrie. Carrie, so what are you calling us for tonight? What do you want?
What do I want? I'd like to go to the paranormal show.
Okay. And why would you like to go to the paranormal show? That a lot of people.
It'd be my first time. I just moved here to Louisville, Kentucky, and it'd be awesome.
Oh, so you're a friend of Michelle's, huh?
Yes.
Oh, sweet. Okay. So are you new in the paranormal, or?
No, I have been. Nope, I have been an investigator for over 20 years.
Holy cow. Okay, well, you are a winner. You will get one ticket, to Mid-South, and that is anywhere between a $50 and a $60 value. I've heard it say 60. And all you have to do for me is email me your name and phone number. We've got to get all the women's phone numbers. Email me your name and phone number to paranormalgeeksradio@gmail.com.
Okay, I can do that.
Well, yeah, okay. What did you think of tonight's show?
Pardon me?
What did you think of tonight's show?
It was pretty good. I enjoy it.
Well, good. I'm glad. That's what we're here for. That's what we're for. And congratulations again on winning this ticket. And hopefully I can meet you down there in August.
Awesome.
August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Mark that on your calendar.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey,
Congratulations, Terry. Woo! Yes. Awesome. Congrats, Terry.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll have to meet you down there, and we'll tip a few back.
Oh, yes, we will.
Okay, cool. All right. You have a great evening, and thanks for calling in, and thanks for listening.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Good night. So, is Terry on your team?
No, Terry is not on my team. However, she just recently moved here from Michigan. And I do have a lot of her team members on my friends list. She, as I was sharing on my Facebook status the show, she was, interested in learning about it. And as soon as she heard that we were giving away tickets, or that you were giving away tickets, she immediately chimed in and tuned in and listened. And obviously, caught the call-in number and was anxious to win the tickets. And luckily, even though I do know her through Facebook, I am super, super excited that she happened to get in first. So kudos to my friend Terry. So that's awesome. That's awesome.
First as in the only person. So that even helps.
Well, I tell you what. Let me put this out there. I still have quite a few to give away. So if another caller would like to call in, I still have a couple that I can give away. And since I was a co-host on this show, that is credible enough. Since I do have my own show, Timeless Dimensions Radio, you are welcome to call in on this one as well. I did put this on my status. I did share this as a co-host factor. So there is one more person eligible to call in. And if you would like to do so, I would encourage you to do so now. We're running out of time. So if someone else would like to win a ticket on the behalf of my show, Timeless Dimensions, please feel free to call in. That number again is 347-826-99996.
Yes, they are Niners.
Not 49ers, but Niners. Yeah, no. We're not going to talk about 49ers.
Let's see, 826. Okay, so we got 69ers and Niner sixes. Anyway, okay. Now, I can't remember where we were at really when LA finally got on. I'm still.
Oh my goodness, he was talking about politics and the Obama Verizon phone Big Brother.
I mean when we were still talking before he called in, it was a great idea. Checking the the cranium capacity with corn. No, with rice.
Oh, yeah. No, I do believe
idea.
he said sand, maybe.
Sand?
No, wait a minute. It was, give me just 1 second. So much information was given to us in that show that it still hasn't really truly absorbed. Rice. It was rice.
Yeah, rice. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was either that or cornflakes. I couldn't remember which one. But, yeah, I mean, that answered that question. Anyway, I hope people are kicking themselves in the butt later. We're probably going to end this show just a little bit early. We deserve it because we've been busy tonight. We'll keep chatting for a little bit. I want to tell you about my next week's guest. Her name is Ann Druffel. She is a author, researcher, a lecturer, also, just more or less like what we had, what LA was. She's a UFO researcher, and she started researching back in 1945. And she has a story of when she was a schoolgirl, she saw lights in the family. She got her mother to look at them, and she's been researching them for the rest of her life. She was one of the first investigators for NICAP, which is an old. I believe it's now defunct. We'll have to talk to her about this next. Yeah, it is. This didn't have a real good ending. There was something with that. Somebody committed suicide or something, I believe. But she's been at this for years. So this ought to be another good show. Yeah, it's getting people on these shows. There's a lot more. Seems like there's a lot more UFO people than maybe the Bigfoot people or I can't think of anything else right now. Ghost people.
There are a lot more famous, or not famous, more people that are well known that dabble into those crypto and the UFO parts of the paranormal. Of course, I tend to focus on the paranormal strictly as in entities and ghost phenomena and stuff like that. Right. But, I love the fact that you pull in some of the out-of-the-box theories, like tonight. Tonight was a phenomenal show, and that was really out of the norm to have a guest come in and talk about some of those things, with our evolution and our history and things that are just totally way out of the box that a lot of people don't think about when they picture the term paranormal. They think of aliens or Bigfoot or, ghosts, and stuff like that. And to be able to talk about those elongated skulls and the fact that there could very well possibly have been genetic manipulation within the species, and that, it could have came from an alien life form is just incredible. I mean, tonight I feel was a gold mine of information, and kudos to you, Jim. Awesome.
Well, thank you. Like I say, when I first heard him, I knew I had to get him on the show. I mean, this, and it also we touched on the big one when I first talked about religion. And we did talk about religion, but I hopefully just put some other ideas out there in people's minds. Like I always say, maybe once or twice every freaking show, I was born Southern Baptist, but I'm open.
Right.
I'm open to other ideas. I'm not going to just shut everything down. I mean, Lord knows, well, he probably does, Lord knows there's holes in that Bible. But then again, there's a lot of factual information in the Bible.
Well, not only that, I mean, you have to embrace that it's very difficult for a Orthodox, controlled, for lack of a better word, and controlled Christianity. They typically do not embrace the paranormal because in their minds it just doesn't exist. God is God, and that is it, and they have their faith, and God is the way, and God is the only answer. So, in my opinion, it's rare that you will find a, for lack of a better term, I hope nobody gets angry at me, but a hardcore Christian to even tune into a radio show like this, to even consider the possibleness of, or the possibility of other life forms, because to them this is the only reason we are here. So I think your listeners, people who are going to tune in to a show like this, are people who are open-minded and will embrace other theories and thoughts, which makes this show so great.
Exactly, because you have to be open-minded to be in the paranormal.
You do.
I mean, that's on the entry. I mean, when you sign up for this, one of the questions, true, false, do you have an open mind?
Yep.
And,
absolutely. You have to.
You're not let in if you're not.
Yeah, you definitely can't come in thinking that your word is the word of the gospel, and I'm not saying that as in a biblical form. Because of what you believe, that is the only explanation. People need to realize that the United States, and actually only a portion of the United States and a portion of Europe, are the only countries on the face of the earth that embrace Christianity. Now, we're talking about a quarter of the world's population. The world's population. Now just let that sit in for a second. The world's population believes in Jesus Christ, okay? The rest do not. Do not. So it is very naive and very arrogant to say that the biblical version of how we were here, how we were brought here, or creation in itself, is the only way. And I understand religion, and that might have been a very arrogant and pompous remark on my part. However, education and knowledge will really enlighten you, and if you can take the time to study other religions or other belief systems, you will see that, Christianity is really low on the totem pole on the planet. Not so much the United States, but the planet. And you need to embrace all cultures and, and give them a chance. I mean, we will not know until we die what's right and what's wrong. So,
Just to throw this out there, as of March 12th of 2012, the population is 7.091 billion on Earth.
Okay.
And
that's a lot of people. Wow.
Yeah, it is. Now, according to Wikipedia, Christians comprise of 33.32% of the world's population, which I didn't think. I thought there were more Muslims than Christians. Muslim is 21.01. Hindu is 13.26. Buddhist is 5.84. Non-religious
now,
14.09.
let me ask you a question on that. And we'll never know the answer to this, but I'm just throwing it out there. There are some people that I know personally that claim to be Christian because they are afraid of society judging them or terrorizing or tormenting them if they say that, say outward that that's not necessarily how they feel. Whether it be evolutionist, atheist, whatever. They're afraid of the repercussions if they do not claim to be Christian. Whether it be in a work setting, a family setting, et cetera, et cetera. So that number, in my opinion, is not totally accurate because of fear.
Right, but 12% different? 12%?
Well, okay. Okay.
I somewhat agree, but I think you have the people who they know that they're not going to that nobody's going to come knocking at the door. I mean, but then again, you don't know. You wouldn't think that 3 weeks ago that we would find out that people are reading our emails.
Right.
You never know.
Well, you know what? If you're not doing anything wrong and you're not a terrorist, I mean, yes, it is a violation. I'm in law enforcement, okay? So I know the Constitution inside out, backward, forward, okay? And even I have issues with the violating of what I consider my rights. However, it's not going to happen with the Patriot Act, okay, and with the threat of terrorism as it is today. So this is the way I deal with it, and I cope with it. If I'm not doing anything wrong and I've got nothing to hide, the government doesn't care that I'm talking about ghosts on my phone. They're not going to,
But seriously, doesn't it bother you that they could be listening, though? I mean, you're all the time on the phone. All the time on the phone, you're not talking about ghosts. You're talking about other things.
I don't think that they have any interest in my love life personally. With all the billions of people that are on this planet, they are not going to isolate me and care whether or not I had sex Thursday night. They don't care. I do believe that they are specifically looking for keywords. I do believe that they are specifically looking for terrorists. There is no way possible, even with their fancy computers, that they're going to be able to review every conversation, every text message. It may be 10, 20 years from now before they get a chance to listen to a conversation I had about a location I went and investigated,
Right.
So more power to them. I'm not against it, and I'm not with it. So it just personally doesn't bother me.
I can see this administration going one of two ways, maybe three. But the one that I bet you anything that they're going to come out on is, we do listen, and I want to tell you, he'll be out there, without his teleprompter, looking into the camera.
Right.
There's something we thwarted a huge nuclear attack where L.A., Chicago, Miami, New York was all targeted, and we thwarted that because of our wiretaps. And that's all I can tell you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, okay, if anybody came up and said that tomorrow, would you believe them? With everything else that's going on with this government right now, would you believe them?
I have my issues with the government. I mean, the whole Area 51, the whole cover-ups with the HART program. I try to steer away from the conspiracy theories because if I don't, I become obsessed and consumed.
I'm not talking about conspiracy theories. I'm talking about the IRS. I'm talking about the things that actually are running right now.
Okay, I must have missed that comment. I'm sorry. Repeat that, please. What you asked me
if they come up with this story saying that we thwarted this nuclear attack that saved the world because of our wiretaps, that we just didn't.
Okay.
Would you believe them?
Chances are the answer to that would be no.
Isn't that sad?
Yes, it is. It really is. But for the majority of my life, I have learned not to trust the government and everything they say. So for me, it's not a shock. It is unfortunate and it is sad, because we depend on the government to protect us, to look out for us, and it could get insanely depressing if I really were to stop and really absorb all that,
so let's not absorb that.
Yeah, I will.
Let's go to the bar and absorb a beer or something.
Yeah. It is.
Okay.
I know with me, real quick, I've been to other countries, military, so I've had the pleasure of visiting Europe and a couple other countries. Some of them you would consider third world. And no matter what, I am proud to be an American. And if I have to put up with what I have to put up with via the government, I still consider myself extremely lucky to live in this country. And,
so do I. I want you to
it could be a lot worse.
Don't get the wrong impression. I do too. I was in the military also.
Yeah.
I do too. But it's just things just are rubbing me the wrong way.
I understand.
Every day,
Me too.
every third or fourth day, something else comes up. Now it's this ambassador in Belgium that was speaking out, having sex with minors and prostitutes.
Oh yeah.
Here we have this ambassador that can do whatever he wants, and we let an ambassador die across the Mediterranean. Yeah. I mean, don't get me. Anyway, we only got like 9 minutes left. But Michelle, I want to thank you very much for being my co-host tonight. It was a pleasure.
It was an honor. Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. And when I have guests like this, you are going to be the first person that I call.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. And once again, it was an honor, Jim. You are a fantastic host, and I adore your show, and totally going to go to bat for your show and really help you promote it. And any listener is lucky because you get great guests, you interview fantastically, and there is a wealth of information that people hear on the media or they hear through a show on Discovery Channel or History Channel, but to actually hear it from the horse's mouth is a phenomenal thing, and you're providing this for these people, and that is phenomenal. So kudos for what you do, dear. Okay, kudos, big time.
Well, thank you, because I'm going to have to listen to that when I listen to the recording, because we didn't have a break. We didn't have a break, and my phone disconnected, and I had to call back in.
Oh, okay.
But thank you very much. I'm sure what you said was very nice.
It was.
And I know. Let's see. The next show that I believe. Let's see. July. See, I have you scheduled for July 2nd.
I think it's the 2nd or the 3rd. Yeah. Yeah,
the 2nd. And like July 30th, I have Kathleen Marden, who. She wrote a couple books. Her aunt and uncle were Betty and Barney Hill, the UFO. But she's also bringing on a lady that has been abducted, and we're going to be talking about her abduction experience.
Fantastic.
So you'll probably be on that one too. And then of course David Weatherly talking. David Weatherly talking about the black-eyed children.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you for everyone who tuned in, and I appreciate you once again. Michelle Fitzpatrick, signing off. Thank you, Jim.
Yep, no problem. Good night, everybody. I want to thank the two people that were in chat tonight, Michelle Baker, and I believe the number 1042 or something like that, whoever was in chat. Thank you for being in chat. Thank you for everybody that have been listening. We'll get this up on YouTube as soon as I can. So y'all have a good evening, and we'll talk to you next week. God bless you all.